You know, there's this invisible force that kind of holds our societies together. It's like the glue that makes economies work and helps communities actually function. It's called social trust. And to really get a grip on its power, we're going to start with one simple but super revealing question.
So, just think about that for a second. If you had to give a straight yes or no, what would you say? Well, your answer actually places you on this global map that shows some pretty startling divides. So, come on, let's see what the data says.
In Turkey, the answer is just 14%. Yeah, you heard that right. According to a new global study from the Pew Research Center, that means a whopping 84% of adults there believe you have to be really, really careful when you're dealing with other people. But hey, this isn't just a story about one country. It's actually part of a much bigger global pattern.
So, that incredibly low number from Turkey? It's a huge outlier, for sure. But it also fits into a much larger story. See, this Pew study reveals this massive global gap in social trust, and it seems to follow a pretty clear economic line.
And when you look at it, the economic divide is, wow, it's stark. In high-income countries, a solid majority of people, we're talking a median of 59%, tend to trust each other. But then you look at the middle-income countries they surveyed, and that trust gets chopped by more than half, dropping to just 27%. And this is no coincidence. It points to a really powerful connection between a country's wealth and its social fabric.
Okay, so with that global picture in mind, let's zoom right back in on where Turkey lands. The overall numbers kind of hint at a problem, but the direct comparison, well, that's even more striking.
I mean, just look at this gap. It's not just big, it's a chasm. Way up at the top, you've got Sweden, where an incredible 83% of people believe others can be trusted. And then, way down at the very bottom of all 25 countries surveyed is Turkey, at just 14%. This puts it right alongside countries like Mexico, Kenya, and Brazil, in what you could call the league of the world's least trusting societies.
So, you might be wondering, is this low number just a recent dip, a bad year, maybe? Or is it part of a bigger, more stubborn story? Let's check out the timeline and see what's been going on.
Yeah, this is definitely not a recent thing. The data is remarkably consistent. It doesn't matter if you look at the World Values Survey from over a decade ago, an Ipsos study from 2022, or this brand new Pew report, the number barely budges. It's been hovering somewhere between 8 and 15% for nearly 20 years. This isn't a temporary problem, it's more like a chronic condition.
But here's the thing, that 14% number, it doesn't really tell the whole story. It's not like people there don't trust anyone. The real question is, who actually gets inside their circle of trust and who gets left out in the cold?
And this is where it gets a lot more nuanced. Research shows that while this generalized trust in strangers is extremely low, there's a very strong in-group trust. So people in Turkey have a ton of confidence in their immediate family and their really close friends. But that trust pretty much stops at the door. It just doesn't extend to the wider society, and that seriously limits the country's overall social capital.
So what? Why does this even matter? Well, because a lack of widespread social trust isn't just some cultural quirk. It has a very real and very high cost for the entire economy and for the country as a whole.
Think about it this way. In a high-trust society, business can move at the speed of a handshake. But in a low-trust world, there's friction everywhere. Every transaction needs more complicated contracts, more lawyers, constant monitoring. It's like this invisible tax on the entire economy that wastes resources and just slows everything down.
And all of this creates a really dangerous feedback loop. When people don't trust each other, they also tend not to trust institutions, like the government or the legal system. And when those institutions aren't seen as fair or accountable, well, that just erodes trust between people even more. It becomes this vicious, self-perpetuating cycle that's incredibly hard to break.
So, let's just bring this all together for a second. It's pretty clear that social trust isn't just a nice-to-have. It is the essential, invisible infrastructure that a healthy, functioning society is literally built on.
This quote from the source article really just says it all, doesn't it? From managing an economy to tackling a public health crisis, everything gets harder, more expensive, and more fragile when that foundation of trust just isn't there. It's the invisible cost that makes every other problem that much harder to solve.
And all of this leaves us with the most important question of all. Knowing the huge cost of mistrust, how does a society even begin the long, difficult process of rebuilding that vital, invisible infrastructure? That's a challenge that goes way beyond any single policy, and it's definitely something worth thinking about.